Hi! Welcome to my YouTube video. My name is Sylvia and I like to crochet. I've recently picked up Crocheting Tapestries and I cannot shut up about it. So I've made a whole video about it. So, I had always been aware of the fact that you can crochet tapestries, but the designs that I had seen were cute, but a bit simplistic and with very few colors and mostly cartoons. So it never really caught my attention. That was until January this year when I saw a reel on Instagram of someone showing off all the tapestries they had done in 2024, and that's when everything changed. So I was so impressed that he posted the reel on December the 31st. By January the 4th, I had already bought the pattern. And here she is. Oh, it already has some hair. So I bought the pattern on January the 4th, but I didn't start crocheting until February. And it only took me 10 days to finish this thing. 10 non-consecutive days of crocheting, and I was done. It is quite small, actually. It's only 60 stitches wide by 120 stitches tall. I used a 4mm hook for this thing, and it required 16 colors. I was okay with buying new yarns, even though my stash was already big enough, but I tried to use what I had. So, out of 16 colors that it required, I used 7 that I already had. Then I bought 8, and I borrowed 1 from someone that I know that also crochets. The problem is that for many of those colors, I only needed a few meters just to cover a few stitches, like the gray here. And now I have even more yarn in my stash that I have no idea what to do with. So, and that is the lesson that I learned for the next tapestry that I made. But first, this one. So the person that designed this pattern is called, I believe it's pronounced Ty Bailey. He's a very talented artist. He's really creative and his tapestries are amazing. He also does scarves and pillows and a few other things. So I really suggest you check him out because it's really worth it. And the patterns, in my opinion, they were cheap. I mean, it's the first time that I bought a crochet pattern and it was $8, which is something a bit less than €7. And for me, it was worth it. I'm really considering buying more in the future. So I was checking out the reel the other day, again, before making this video, and many of the comments were asking, what does the back look like? Which is a very charged question because, well, let me show you. Of course, it looks like crap. Oops. So the back looks really messy, and that's because this is technically not tapestry crochet. Even though it's a tapestry made out of crochet, it's not tapestry crochet. If it were, then the back would look exactly like the front. Tapestry crochet is a technique where you carry the yarn that you're not working with under the yarn you're working with. Makes no sense. I could make a video about that if you want. But I brought something that I made using the technique called tapestry crochet. As you can see, it's completely reversible. But it's limited to only 2 or 3 colors per row at a time. Technically, this would be Fair Isle, which is a technique where you have floats. That means the yarn you carry from one point to another. And the problem is that it makes the back really messy. Does it really matter? Not for me, because it's laying against the wall. No one's gonna see the back. So to make this, I had to work with multiple colors at a time, and there were a lot of color changes. So to do this, first I turned the skeins into cakes and I work with them directly. So to make this, I would only work with 1 skein of yarn per color. So That's why, for example, I carried this blue from here to here. So the only yarn that I didn't carry from one side of the tapestry to the other were the ones from the border, the brown, the beige, and the red, because that would have made a bunch of lines and that would have been a waste of yarn. So I had 3 skeins on one side and 3 skeins on the other one, and I skewered them together, which was a mess. Everything got tangled all the time. So this was my first tapestry. And the first mistake that I made was the biggest one, which was starting on the opposite direction. So instead of making this image, I was making a mirrored image, which wouldn't have been a big problem if it wasn't for this word pelican. And I didn't notice until I was halfway through the lettering and I realized I couldn't read the word because it was mirrored, and I had to undo a few rows and start over again, which was annoying. So other mistakes that I made, well, not technically mistakes, but things that I would have changed if I could right now, is the color choice. If you see, there is a 3rd shade of blue next to the lettering that you probably can't even see from there because it's too close to the background blue. Another thing that I didn't like is the shade of white. It's a bit beige, and I would have liked it to be pure white. Not a big problem. I'm quite happy with the way it looks. Not the back though. I also was a bit lazy, and to finish the tapestry I didn't weave in the ends. I just tied knots and cut the rest. I'm sorry, no one's gonna see it. And I also ironed this entire tapestry, and that's why it looks so flat and beautiful. And I am really happy with how it turned out, and I enjoyed the process so much that I considered doing another one. And I did. So for a few months after I finished that tapestry, I saw a few cross-stitch patterns on Pinterest, and they really caught my attention. I saved a few of them and I kept going back to one. Mostly because the colors that it required I already had in my stash, and that was a great point in its favor. So the original pattern was a cross-stitch pattern, but there are people that had already crocheted this pattern with crochet. Now the results they were getting were a bit small, like the tapestry would turn out a bit small, like approximately this size, and I wanted something big to cover this wall. And so I decided that I wanted it to be twice as long and twice as tall, and for that I had to alter the pattern and give it more resolution. So you see, I turned every single pixel into 4 pixels. So I technically gave it 4 times the resolution that I had. I did that on Stitch Fiddle, on the free version of Stitch Fiddle. I had also used Stitch Fiddle for the other tapestry, so now that I knew how to use the platform, I decided to use it to alter the cross-stitch pattern that I had found on the internet for free, which I don't think it's legal, or at least not entirely ethical, but I simply really like the pattern, and I couldn't find the original creator anywhere. So it took me a few days to do this, to alter the pattern. I basically had to turn every single pixel in the original picture into 4 pixels, and that also allowed me to give it a bit more definition, to change things around. What I didn't touch was the color scheme or the main design, because I am not an artist and I didn't know how to do that. It took me a few days to do that, and then I left it sit in my computer for a few months until I actually began to crochet the tapestry. The first thing that I'm going to show you is the back, because I'm going to hang it and I don't want to take it down. This thing is heavy. Boop, 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 boop. Here she is. So even though I used the free version of Stitch Fiddle to alter the pattern, I still needed the premium version to actually follow the pattern, because this thing is massive. It has a bunch of pixels that don't even fit on a screen, and I needed someone to tell me exactly how many stitches of each color I had to do on each row, and that is only included in the premium version. I had that on the other pattern, the one that I bought, and I got used to the good stuff and I couldn't do it without it. Also, this thing is like 4 times bigger than that, or twice, I don't remember. This guy is 150 stitches wide and 144 stitches tall. And this one took me a month, technically. So I wanted to take it slow, and I intended to do it in 2 months. You can buy Stitch Fiddle Premium for a monthly subscription, and it cancels automatically after the 1 month. So my plan was to do this in 2 months. The first month I would do half of the tapestry, so 72 rows, and the other month I would do the remaining 72 rows. And I also intended to take a break in between, like a few weeks where I wouldn't crochet this tapestry, because I imagined that I was gonna be a bit burnt out. And the first month I was supposed to do 72 rows. When I was around row 18, I gave up. And I had this thing sitting in my house for an entire month because I was bored of it. The day before my monthly subscription ended, that's when I decided that I wanted to take it back up. Yeah. Then I had to renew my subscription, my €4.50 subscription to Stitch Fiddle Premium. And again, I had the plan to do it in 2 months, but I got really into the hang of it. I was going through this really fast. I was kind of addicted, to be honest, and I did this in just 1 month. So I was doing between 4 and 8 stitches a day, which is crazy. So I ran out of 4 colors. One was red. You might not notice it, but there's only 2 reds, and here there are 3. Then the green, this green, and this green are different shades of green because I completely ran out of green, and I also had to delete a leaf around here because I simply didn't have green. And then this one, I had nothing to substitute this with, so what I did was make the leaves more dark green than light green. Then I was also running out of dark blue, but it turned out I had just enough to finish this project, which was great, because I really didn't want to buy new yarn. So this tapestry originally only used 14 colors. Again, I had to substitute the green and the red, so that's 2 more. And I only exclusively used yarns that I already had, which created a few problems on itself. One is that some yarns were different thickness. This, for example, was a cotton yarn, very thin, that I had to double, and in this specific shade I even had to triple. Then there were yarns that were a lot thicker than the rest, like this white or this green, and for the green I even unraveled the yarn from 3 threads to just 2 threads, and that created some bulking and warping and messy things. Then also the color selection was limited to what I had. If I had been able to choose exactly the colors that I wanted, I would have chosen maybe different shades of green and of red and maybe even of blue. But the good thing is that I use the same yarns that I used for the other tapestry, and now they are matching. Actually, I also added the border that the original tapestry had so they would match. I would say this was a success. I finished the entire thing without buying any yarn. Actually, this was free. I only had to buy the sticks. And the pattern was also free, which again, I'm not sure if it's really ethical. And also, thanks to working with the yarn that I already had and didn't like very much, I was able to get rid of 4 skeins of yarn that I didn't want in my stash anymore. The problem that originated from mixing all these yarns is that it doesn't lie completely flat like the other one. It bulks up in a few places, and it created a little bit of warping around this corner over here. But from far away, it's not noticeable at all. So I'm happy with it. This time, to avoid the yarns tangling around each other, I decided to divide the yarns in different bobbins. For that, I cut some pieces of cardboard and I wrapped the yarn around them and created a few bobbins. And so for many colors, I had multiple bobbins within the same row, because as you can see, for example, here I was using this light green and I wouldn't use it again until here, and that would have meant that I would have a float that would cross the entire tapestry, which would have been a mess and a waste of yarn. So I had, for example, a bobbin of green here and another one here. So technically this is a mix of Fair Isle and Intarsia. I did turn my work after every single row, which created a little bit of zigzag in the stitches. There were between 25 and 50 color changes per row. So I was often working with around 20 bobbins of yarn on each row, which was quite messy, to be honest. And I got the idea from someone on social media that is also creating a massive tapestry, and that is Hook for a Handicraft, or also known as Jack Evil. And they are creating a Stardew Valley map pixel for pixel, and they post an update every single week, and I've been hooked because I had the feeling that I had a crochet buddy that was doing something similar. Theirs is a lot bigger. If I remember correctly, it was 400 by 244. So in this tapestry I made fewer mistakes than in the other one. In the other one I often had to frog an entire row or multiple rows because I didn't count properly. That didn't happen as often with this one. So even though when crocheting this I didn't encounter many problems, hanging it was another can of worms. So for one, the store where I bought the wooden rods didn't carry rods long enough for this thing. So I bought 1, 2, and 3. I cut some pieces of this thing and glued it to the other two, but the only glue that I had was hot glue. Wouldn't recommend at all. Another problem is that this thing is really heavy. I mean, it's 400 grams. Another problem that I had is that the thread that is holding the entire tapestry would slide on the rod, and to prevent that I had to carve a little groove on the wood so it would stay stuck there and wouldn't scrunch up the entire top of the tapestry. And the other problem was the warping. I also ironed this thing and it kind of went away, but not entirely. Like from here up close I'm seeing the problems. So what are my final thoughts on crocheting tapestry? Well, for one, it is really entertaining and engaging. It's not like crocheting a blanket where you just repeat the same stitch again and again and you can watch TV in the meantime. When you're making a tapestry, you need to pay close attention to the pattern and count every single stitch, or else you will have to frog a few rows, which I have done in the past, and it's not enjoyable. The second thing is that it's really satisfying because you can see the pictures appearing row after row. I've done a little time lapse to show you how the second fish appeared in my tapestry, and it's really satisfying, actually. It's also fast-ish depending on the size of the tapestry compared to, again, a blanket, which was the project that I finished before these tapestries. I did one in 10 days and this one in 1 month, and it's engaging enough that it keeps you interested and wanting to come back to do a few more rows every single day. It's very messy though. Working with up to 20 or even more than 20 threads at the same time is I wouldn't do that every single day of my life. But for a project every now and then, it's fine. It makes it even more engaging. And it also requires a lot of colors, so you have to have either a big stash of yarn or buy new yarn every now and then. And I don't like that. I don't have physical space to have that many yarn. Another good thing is that it opens up the world to you. You can literally crochet any image that you want, any photo, any painting, any screenshot, even text. You can crochet absolutely anything, and it is great for decoration. You can also use it in clothing or other items, but I really like the concept of a tapestry. I also really like the way that it looks. It's very, very pretty in my opinion. I've showed this to all the people that I know in real life, and I've gotten a few weird looks. It's not for everyone's taste, I guess, but I love it. And I definitely want to do more tapestries in the future. It's also quite easy. It's messy, but it's easy. It's just single crochets again and again and again. So maybe not for complete beginners, but for people who have a little bit of experience, I think it's a great project if you're into it. And to end this video, all I want to say is that I have really enjoyed crocheting tapestries and that I definitely want to do it again. But I'm going to take a break from that now because I have other projects in mind. And if you want to see what I'm making next, I suggest you stay tuned to this channel and subscribe and even hit a like if you feel like it. And comment if you have tried tapestry crochet or crocheting tapestries in the past. And what are your thoughts on it? So thank you very much for watching until the end and see you next time. Bye!